When Owen Pearson handed me the breakup settlement for the 19th time, I accepted it. The girl he loves is clamoring for a formal relationship and can't wait any longer. I can't wait either. I'm pregnant, but the baby is not his. 01. After signing the agreement, I took a photo and sent it to Owen. It's signed. Can you ask Zhangzhu to come and get it? 20 minutes passed quietly. Owen's dialogue box was as quiet as death. I was just thinking about whether to order a local courier. But I saw Owen standing at the door, breathing slightly. He actually came in person. 2. His mistress has been making a fuss in the city for half a year in order to gain a legal status. Seems that he is really anxious. Tell me, what are you planning to do? I have given you everything I deserve. His voice was cold with a hint of impatience. 3 years ago, Owen gave me a wedding. From then on, I became his nominal Mrs. Pearson. I accompanied him from poverty to success. But in the past 6 months, he has been thinking about how to dump me. Just to make room for that little canary. He has revised the property division agreement alone to the 19th version. Before I was not satisfied. This time I signed obediently, but he became suspicious. I chuckled and handed him the agreement. He opened it suspiciously, and when he saw that I had really signed it, his face darkened. Olivia Warner, do you really agree? I looked at him oddly. He used to always say that what he hated most was my ignorance and my tendency to get jealous. Now I'm not making any noise or fuss, I've fulfilled his wish, I took the money and left. But why does he seem even more unhappy? You don't want to see me cry and try to keep him, do you? I smiled. Isn't this good? You can marry Mia Sanders openly, and I can replan my life. This agreement includes everything from houses, cars to company shares. He also spent a lot of money. I welcome everyone who comes. After all, I was the one who accompanied him through all those years of obscurity. Who would really be willing to plant trees for the next generation to enjoy the shade? It's okay now. Over the years, I have earned my own fortune, plus what he wants to share with me. Even if I start traveling around the world from tomorrow, it will be enough for me to live wealthy for the rest of my life. Although love is gone, fortunately I still have a lot of money. Owen listened to what I said, but his eyes looked complicated and he seemed to be hesitant to speak. At this time, a soft and gentle female voice interrupted us. Olivia. Thank you for being willing to help us. Mia, the canary that Owen cherishes in his heart. She is a golden phoenix that flew out of a hill. Ordinary second-tier university degree. It was not easy to get into the highly competitive Pearson group, and she became Owen's secretary in the president's office in just 3 months. She was really trying hard to seduce Owen. Owen said she was innocent and kind, and was always afraid that I would bully her. But what kind-hearted person would sleep with a married man and send the bed photos to his wife? I used to be unable to accept it and I cried and made a fuss. In a fit of anger, he even exposed them and posted them online. As a result, the next day no trace was left. Owen's methods have always been decisive and efficient. What's funny is that one day he would use these methods on me. I'm tired of all this trouble. I looked at the two of them with a half smile, not wanting to say another word. We have the agreement, why don't you leave? I ordered them to leave. This villa is under my name. After Owen started to find lovers frequently, he rarely came back here. If they stay one more second, I'll want to disinfect the whole house. Owen's face darkened. Olivia, playing hard to get doesn't work with me. Since you dare to sign, don't regret it. After saying that, he pulled Mia out. Etc. I called out to Owen and he turned around to look at me with an expression that said, as I expected. Maybe he thought I couldn't bear to part with him again. But I just reminded him. Don't forget to transfer the money as soon as possible, and transfer the real estate to me as soon as possible. His expression was blank for a second. Then he gritted his teeth and said, You are anxious. I'm anxious. How can I not be anxious? I'm pregnant and it's not his. If you don't part ways with him now, it will be difficult to end. 02. I made an appointment for a prenatal checkup. But I didn't expect to meet Owen and Mia in the hospital. He held her hand carefully. Mia chirped and he listened patiently with a gentle and doting look in his eyes. They were so close that it seemed as if there was no room for a third person to come in. Memories come flooding back. A long time ago, he also treated me as a treasure. Too long. The last time he looked at me like that was when I had a miscarriage. At that time, I was 4 months pregnant. He had his first lover outside. She was a fearless girl. She came to me in a hurry and asked me to make room for her. I scolded her for being shameless, but she said that those who are not loved are mistresses. Perhaps her self-esteem was greatly hurt. She pushed me hard. The child was gone just like that. I was covered in blood and was taken to the operating room. When I woke up again, the first thing I saw was Owen, who looked very guilty. His eyes were filled with guilt. He held my hand tightly and choked with sobs. "I'm sorry, Olivia. I'm the bastard, hit me now, I'm sorry." I slapped him hard, but he didn't even try to dodge and just took it. When I was tired of fighting, he spoke awkwardly. "Just this once, Olivia, give me a chance to make amends, okay? We will have children." He sent the girl away. He became a caring lover again. Unfortunately, it only lasted for a short 6 months. Half a year later, a new girl started dating him. Later, the girls were replaced one after another. Before I could even remember all the young and delicate faces, they had already changed their appearance. Mia was the one who stayed with him the longest. It was a bit awkward to meet them in the obstetrics and gynecology department this time. I turned around and wanted to leave. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by Mia's voice. "Olivia, what a coincidence." She was hanging on Owen like a big pendant. Her face was also red, and she looked a little shy. "I'm pregnant, let me see the doctor." I watched her performance with a blank expression. Owen saw the registration form in my hand and frowned. "What's wrong with you?" I smiled coldly. "Mr. Pearson, it's best not to be too curious about your ex-wife's privacy in front of your new lover." He seemed a little annoyed, and pushed me aside and grabbed my wrist. "Olivia, I'm your man. You suddenly showed up in the obstetrics and gynecology department, so I have the right to ask questions." I looked at him steadily, and couldn't help but add a bit of mockery to my tone. "My man? Mr. Pearson, are you sure? We had a wedding though. But in the marriage registration system, I have always been unmarried." Owen was stunned for a moment, as if he suddenly remembered something, and his eyes became even gloomier. Yes, that wedding was so romantic and grand. To outsiders, I was his only Mrs. Pearson. Especially in recent years, our business and equity distribution have become complicated. But who knows? In fact, we have never been to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Whenever I urged Owen to get my marriage certificate, he was either going to a meeting or going on a business trip abroad. His time is always so precious. It was so precious that for 3 whole years, he couldn't spare half an hour to accompany me to get a marriage certificate. But when we broke up, we had a huge falling out over the distribution of money and power, and it became known to everyone. My wrist was hurt by his grip, but he refused to let go. Fortunately, it wasn't long before the caller called my name. "Please ask patient Olivia to go to clinic room 5. Owen then reluctantly let go of my hand. I immediately walked past him and Mia and entered the consulting room, locking the door. He paid no attention to Owen's extremely dark face. After the doctor carefully read my examination report, he gave me some instructions. He also told me to bring the child's father along next time. "He's dead." These words were like a thunderclap. The doctor, who had been concentrating on treating the patient, quickly looked up with sympathy in his eyes. He changed his tone to one of comfort and asked me to accept my condolences. I also cooperated by showing a sad expression. 03. Maybe it's because it's the early stages of pregnancy, I'm a little sleepy. I have been sleeping since I came back from the hospital. In a daze I had many dreams. It all started when I had just graduated from college, and Owen's family went bankrupt, and he was living on the streets. He and I squeezed into a small rental house. He hugged me, wrapped me in his down jacket, and leaned against his heart. "Olivia, when I have money, I will never let you suffer again. I have to hire at least 5 people, 1 to cook for you, 1 to wash your clothes, and 1 to fold your quilts." His vigorous heartbeat was in my ears. My face turned red at his sweet words, and I naively believed that the love he talked about could withstand any difficulties. Later, he really made a comeback and achieved success. However, there were more people around him. Those people come and go, just like the love that Owen can't grasp. At the end of the dream, the floor was a mess, There were broken porcelain pieces, my feet were bleeding, and I broke down and cried. He looked at me going crazy without any reaction, and said indifferently, "Olivia, you look really ugly like this." At that moment I looked at him. The person I loved deeply when I was young seemed to have suddenly rotted away. When I woke up it was already dark. I was in a daze and prepared to get up. A sudden voice startled me. I heard that. "You were pregnant with my child, and you spread rumors everywhere saying that I was dead." I was startled and looked in the direction of the sound. I saw a man looking at me in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. The moonlight cast a layer of silver light on his originally dark suit. There was no light in the room and he was hiding in the darkness. If he hadn't spoken, it would have been hard to detect him. "Isaac Dawson, who are you trying to scare to death? You're going too far." Isaac laughed at my words. He walked to the bed and pulled me into his arms. The warm body temperature came through the thin pajamas, and his palm gently caressed my lower back. When he spoke again, his tone was extremely helpless. "Who is going too far, Olivia? First you slept and then I ran away, and now you want to run away with my child?" 04. Isaac guessed correctly. My plan is to take my children and find a small city to settle down. Stay away from Owen. And stay away from Isaac. After all, he and I didn't start off well. That was 3 months ago on my birthday. Owen took the initiative to say that before we parted, he wanted to spend one last birthday with me. For the sake of good luck, let's part ways in peace. He made a restaurant reservation early. Sitting near the window, you can take in the entire night view at a glance. He came to pick me up at home as if nothing had changed between us. He held the cake for me and lit the candles himself. Make a wish. At his urging, I closed my eyes with mixed feelings and silently recited in my heart, "My wish is." It only takes about 10 seconds. When I opened my eyes again, I looked at the empty space opposite me, feeling confused. Owen is missing. I waited for a long time but he didn't come back. Finally, it was the waiter who came to inform me and said, "Mr. Pearson just left after receiving a phone call. He said that you should finish your meal and leave immediately. He paid for all the consumption today." I watched the candles on the cake burn out and the cream collapse bit by bit. The words "Happy Birthday" turned into an ugly red patch. Finally, I laughed sarcastically. After leaving the restaurant, I took a taxi to the port. When we were poor and had no money to travel to other places, Owen always liked to take me to the port. He always said that it would be nice to be able to feel the sea breeze, even if he couldn't see any fresh scenery. Later, the sea was still the same sea. But people have changed a long time ago. I walked aimlessly for a long time, until someone around me suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my God, this is so romantic." I followed their gaze towards the night sky over the sea. The sky was pitch black and the lights of countless drones were flashing. In romantic cursive words, "Mia, I love you." A few seconds later, countless flowers bloomed in the night sky. Gorgeous and beautiful. Pedestrians sighed. "Oh my God, which prince is showing his love again?" Alas, today is another day for me to be a makeshift NPC in the world. I opened my moments almost in a self-torturing way. Sure enough, I saw the copy that Mia showed off. True love is that no matter what time it is, as long as I say I miss him, he will give me a confession. The accompanying picture is a photo of the drone confession. 05. When a person's heart is dead to the extreme, he will probably become no different from a madman. I bought a lot of wine to drink. There were too many people at the beach. Owen and Mia were together, surrounded by unsuspecting passers-by and didn't notice me at all. I looked at them for a long time, until I realized that I was surrounded by empty bottles and shadows began to appear in my vision. I realized that drinking any more would be bad, so I stood up and staggered away. After finally leaving the bustling port, I walked along the road and bumped into someone head-on. "Be careful." He held my hand to steady me. I stood up and saw who it was. Isaac, a big shot in the Shanghai Circle and heir to the Dawson Group. I have had some dealings with him over the years due to business investments. It can be said that 2/3 of my wealth was earned thanks to this big tree. He is the complete opposite of Owen, and there is almost no opposite sex around him. People in the circle joked about whether he was gay. He never argued back. "Olivia." He held me and frowned. Why did you drink so much? He smells nice and clean. Unlike Owen, who always smells of Mia's perfume. Isaac, they all say that you like men, is that true? I asked out of nowhere. My tongue is a little numb, probably because of the alcohol. Isaac was stunned at first, then sighed helplessly and carefully helped me into his Rolls Royce. Maybe he just looks like me. Maybe the alcohol numbed my mind. Or maybe I was just seeking revenge on Owen in disguise. I quietly approached Isaac and took the initiative to kiss him on the cheek. He turned around and looked at me in surprise. At that moment, the pupils vibrated. His cold white skin was tinged with a faint redness of warmth. The next second, I was so bold that I sat on him. Isaac, do you want to try it with me? So close that my lips brushed his earlobe. It's very soft. I just kissed her. His ears felt slightly hot. A voice sounded above my head, a little hoarse. Olivia, wake up. I laughed. I'm awake. I know you men like young and pretty girls. You can get rid of women with just one sentence. We're tired of you. The heat in my body began to rise, and I subconsciously wanted to move towards a cooler place. His brows were slightly furrowed, and his eyes were dark and unclear. I tilted my head back for another kiss. This time he didn't hide. His lips were icy cool and had a minty scent. Smells good. The kiss was so confusing that I almost suffocated. But he held the back of my head with one hand and pinched my waist with the other. Forces me to continue. The baffle inside the car rises in time, completely isolating it into an enclosed space. He finally let me go. His voice even hoarser than before. Olivia, I don't like men. I don't like young people either. His reaction time is quite long. We've already kissed each other, why are you still talking about this? The alcohol didn't cause me to black out, but it did make my mind a little foggy. Before I could figure out what was going on, Isaac had already started the car. It didn't take long before we arrived at our destination. Isaac picked me up from the back seat and carried me sideways. He carried me through the living room of the villa, quickly went upstairs to the bedroom, and carefully put me on the bed. He looked down at me from above, standing by the bed. My eyes were fixed on his lips. The lips that had just been kissed were moist and filled with moisture, a little swollen and red. Looking down, he unbuttoned 2 buttons on his shirt collar. With his collarbone exposed to the air, he looked like a seductive male demon. He curled his lips, took my hand and put it under his shirt. Olivia, do you want it? 06. Yes, yes. After getting a satisfactory answer, Isaac leaned over and kissed me on the lips. Unlike the previous 2 times, this time he kissed me deeply and hard, as if to vent his strong possessiveness. Hot kisses all the way down. Olivia, do you like it? My face was almost cooked and I could only cling to Isaac. At first I bit my lip hard and didn't answer. In the end, he was defeated by Isaac's attack. I buried my face in his neck and sobbed. I like it. Yeah. He kissed me with satisfaction. Finally, I fell asleep in his arms. When I woke up the next day, he was gone. I understand what you mean. He must be a person who is afraid of trouble. It just so happens that I'm also afraid of trouble. Since he's gone, naturally I had to pretend nothing had happened. This is good for both of us. So I slipped away and blocked all his contact information to avoid embarrassment. As for business dealings, I will let the people below to handle them in the future and just do what is official. Isaac and I haven't seen each other since then. It was not until a few days ago when my period was delayed that I realized that, after that incident, I don't think I took birth control pills. I secretly bought a pregnancy test. I tested it 5 times in a row, and the result was 2 bars every time. I have a lot of questions. After my last miscarriage, the doctor said that it would be difficult for me to get pregnant again in the future. Where is the difficulty we agreed on? How did Isaac win in 1 try? I am confused. Logically, Isaac has the right to know. But remembering his attitude that day, I'm not sure either. Just in case, I didn't say anything. I just prepared to break up with Owen as soon as possible and make good plans for the future of me and my child. Unfortunately, Isaac showed up before I could make any arrangements. Olivia, why did you block me? His lips were pressed against my ears, his voice was cold, but warm breath flowed out from between his lips and teeth. You're not regretting it after we slept together, are you? 07. His attitude left me a little dumbfounded. I didn't expect that he would care so much about me blocking him. To avoid further misunderstandings, I decided to make it clear. Isaac, we are all adults. I was the one who started it that night, so I understand that I have to bear the consequences. Since you can find out about the hospital, you should know. I will definitely keep the child. I have money, and I can take care of raising the child myself, so it won't cause you any trouble. If you're really worried, we can sign a confidentiality agreement. Isaac, who was kissing my earlobe, suddenly froze and lowered his voice. You come by yourself? What if the child asks about his father? What if he wants to see a picture of Dad? I have thought deeply about this. I will tell the child that his father is dead. The photo can be synthesized by AI, and as for the cause of death, let's just say it was a car accident. If you're not satisfied, you can always come up with a more dignified way to die. Of course, if you want to see the baby later, that's fine. Just let him call you uncle. Isaac frowned at first, but when he heard the last part, he burst into laughter. Call me uncle? Olivia, what do you take me for? I choked, not quite sure what he meant. How come I have even thought of a way out for him? But he is still not satisfied. Isaac, I'm just sorry to trouble you so much. After all, you left quite cleanly that day. As I spoke, I observed Isaac's expression and thought about other possibilities. Could it be that he changed his mind after finding out I was pregnant and wanted to snatch custody of the baby from me? Isaac took several deep breaths before speaking again helplessly. I don't think you're a nuisance. I was slightly stunned. Another absurd guess suddenly occurred in my mind. Isaac looked at me deeply and explained seriously. That day, there was a problem with a project at my French branch, and I had to rush over to handle it myself. I left you a note asking you to wait for me to come back. So you didn't see anything at all. Note? I certainly didn't see it. In this technologically advanced age, why would he still write notes? Besides, I was too embarrassed to even think about running away, so I didn't have the energy to check if there was a note on the bedside table. Isaac continued to accuse. When I wanted to contact you again, I found that you had blocked all my contact information. Olivia, am I something shameful in your eyes? I smiled awkwardly. That's serious. But we can't just get married after sleeping together. He lowered his eyes and asked back, how is that impossible? I suddenly opened my eyes wide and said in disbelief, are you serious? Isaac, do you like children so much? Isaac's eyes were very deep. He stared at me for a long time. His eyes were slightly lazy, and his voice sounded deep. Just think of it as me liking children. 08. Of course, I didn't agree to Isaac. This is ridiculous. Owen and I went from being in love with each other to hating each other. We have been entangled for so many years, but there was no happy ending. I don't want to jump into another siege so easily. Isaac didn't force me, he just watched me add all his contact information back. He also told me to be sure to notify him when I go for my next prenatal checkup. I frowned. Is this necessary? I don't know if it's an illusion. There seemed to be a feeling of gnashing teeth in his smile. Didn't you say I like children? How could someone who loves children let you go for a prenatal checkup alone? Okay. I respect his rights as a biological father. What's more, he is the cash cow of my business. You still have to give them some face. Since then, Isaac started to care about my food, clothing and diet, and even bought me baby supplies. Once, when he was on a business trip to Europe, he even brought back a crib that was custom-made by a master craftsman. The crib was also filled with various diapers, milk powder, and baby cream. He seems really looking forward to the baby's arrival. Slowly, as time went by, I got used to it. Until the auction half a month later. When Isaac and I entered the venue together, we ran into Owen. Mia held Owen's hand, with a look of pride that could not be hidden in her eyes. We hadn't seen each other for a long time, and when Owen saw me standing next to Isaac, he was stunned for a moment. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something to me, but Mia didn't give him this opportunity. Honey, I'm a little tired, can you sit over there with me? Before leaving, she did not forget to look back and gave me a mocking smile. I ignored it. After all, you are pregnant and you have to stay away from these sources of nausea as much as possible. The exhibits at this auction were rather average and I wasn't very interested. Until I saw a necklace. That piece of collection is very beautiful. It is one that I liked very much many years ago but had never been able to buy. The starting price is 800,000. I raised the sign first. Mia was not to be outdone and followed me all the way. 1 million. 1 million and a half. Finally, Owen raised his hand. 3 million. He knew I had wanted this necklace for a long time, but he still tried to snatch it from me and deliberately gave it to Mia. I glanced in their direction and happened to see Mia's smug expression. I know that Mia may not like it that much, she just simply doesn't want to see me having an easy time. 3 million first time. 3 million second time. I didn't raise the sign again. Isaac squeezed my hand and tried to raise the price. 500. Before he could finish his words, I quickly grabbed him and said, 5 what 5, are you crazy? His expression was somewhat innocent. 5 million isn't expensive. Don't you like it? I sneered. Why isn't it expensive? You just haven't been poor before. Only those who have been truly poor know that 5 million is really expensive. When people are in desperate situation, they may fight for $500, let alone 5 million. But Isaac, who is out of touch with the world, probably finds it difficult to empathize with this kind of truth. I shook my head. Don't argue, I don't like things that lose money. The 3 million Owen offered is far more than the value of the necklace itself. If he wants to be a sucker, let him be one. Anyway, Owen had already signed the property division agreement. The money he spends now is all his own. 3 million may not be a lot, but a little bit adds up. I hope he becomes poorer and poorer as he spends more. 3 million for the third time. Make a deal. The fall of the auction hammer means that the dust has settled. After it was over, the crowd filed out. Mia deliberately came to my side and started showing off. Olivia, are you angry? It's all Ayu's fault. Just because I like it, I don't care. I'll lend it to you to have a look. Owen, who was following him, watched the scene in silence. He really doted on Mia, allowing her to dance in front of me again and again. I curled my lips slightly. No, I don't like it that much. If you like it, take it. After all, what good can something you like be? I glanced meaningfully at Owen beside her. Owen's face darkened visibly, and he said angrily, Olivia, how did you become like this? It's just a necklace, is it necessary to be so sarcastic? At worst I can compensate you with one later. I raised my eyes for a moment, then looked at him intently. No, like you said, it's just a necklace. I don't lack it. Owen choked, and then he seemed to finally remember something. I'm a jewelry designer. When he started his company, he got his first pot of gold from me selling the copyright of my own designs, which gave him 1 million yuan. At that time, he hugged me with red eyes and said that he would buy me a lot of jewelry in the future. Unfortunately, in the end, he only gave me an ordinary ring. I was his girlfriend for 4 years and Mrs. Pearson for 3 years. He used a tiny diamond to defraud me of my most precious 7 years. A promise is only sincere at the moment it is spoken. But sincerity is something that changes rapidly. In the end, love is a long and arduous journey, and it all depends on conscience. Now, he has his company and I have my own business. My jewelry design brand has long been famous all over the world. Whatever I like, I can buy myself. He is no longer needed. Owen seemed to be recalling past events and was a little absent-minded. When he looked at me again, there was a hint of guilt and nostalgia in his eyes. At this moment, Isaac's tall body suddenly intervened, completely blocking Owen's gaze from looking at me. His voice was lazy, but full of sarcasm. Mr. Pearson, I haven't seen you for a few years. Have you changed your taste? Have you switched to green tea? When talking about green tea, Isaac glanced at Mia lightly. Mia tried hard not to explode, but the expression on her face was almost distorted. I'm too lazy to read on. Isaac, let's go. My action of calling his name in public seemed to please Isaac, and he curled up the corners of his mouth and smiled. I thought that everything would end here and everything would be peaceful. Unexpectedly, Owen suddenly regretted his decision. 09. I have the habit of silencing my phone when I sleep. When I woke up that day, the screen showed more than 30 missed calls and 99 plus WeChat messages. All of Owen's. Olivia, let's talk. I'll go find you. No one is home, where are you? What disease did you go to the hospital's obstetrics and gynecology department for last time? Are you pregnant? If you are pregnant, I can promise you that we will not separate. If you don't reply, I will wait for you at the door. Olivia. Why were you not at home all night? Why did you even fire the maid? Because I moved away a long time ago. There were traces of his life in that house, and I felt unhappy living there, so I simply sold the house. After Isaac learned about this as the child's father, he kindly provided an island villa and hired a private doctor and nurse. The island has a beautiful environment and a pleasant climate, which is especially suitable for fetal development. I didn't refuse. Anyone who refuses this kind of thing is a fool. Since Isaac wants to enjoy the rights of being a father, he naturally has to be willing to bleed a little. This is called equal exchange. This kind of tacit understanding has gradually developed between Isaac and me. As for Owen, according to the agreement, he still has a lot of property that has not been transferred to me. How is it possible to regret at this time? I called back immediately. Owen's voice came from the receiver, a little hoarse from fatigue. Show you, I asked the previous servants, and they said they noticed you were taking medication to preserve your pregnancy. If it's true, then we can put it aside for now. I suddenly lost my patience. When a person is unlucky, even taking medicine may cause the servants to secretly watch and report him. Fortunately, I understood that truth will come out sooner or later, and I was mentally prepared. Before Owen could finish, I interrupted him calmly. I am pregnant. But Owen, who said the child is yours? There was silence on the other end of the phone for a long time. I could almost hear Owen's rapid breathing. After a while, he asked coldly, Olivia, what do you mean? 10. I was playing with the egg yolk when Owen finally found me. Egg yolk is a little yellow dog that Isaac adopted for me because he was afraid that I would be bored. It is gentle and affectionate. She likes to lie at my feet and bask in the sun. Owen saw me and was stunned. You're really here. If I remember correctly, all the properties here should be under the name of the Dawson family. He stared at my stomach, as if he wanted to stare a hole in me. When exactly did you? I tilted my head and smiled, then told him. Remember my birthday? The night you left and used a drone to confess your love to Mia. Owen's eyes widened and he looked at me in disbelief. Finally, he uttered a sentence in a trembling voice. Olivia, we haven't even separated yet, and you've already cheated on me? In his eyes, it seemed like I was the betrayer who had made a mistake and should be blamed. I couldn't help but laugh sarcastically and asked him, so over the years your lovers have changed one after another. When you were rolling around with Mia and getting her pregnant, did you ever think about me? He knew he was in the wrong and had no way of defending himself. After standing there for a long time, he reluctantly uttered, Olivia, you abort the baby, we won't fight anymore. I'll go with you to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the marriage certificate, we'll get married and live a good life from now on, okay? I was so angry that I laughed, staring into his eyes without blinking. Abort it? Do you think it's possible? I had a miscarriage and the doctor said it would be difficult for me to have children again. Have you forgotten why I had a miscarriage? Who are you to decide whether my child should stay or go? His body shook and pain flashed in his eyes. Okay. Then you give birth to it. When you are better, we can have another child of our own. Okay? I felt like I had heard a huge joke. I couldn't help but look at him as if he was mentally ill. Do you want to listen to what you are saying? With red eyes, he made a final concession. Olivia, for you, I can acknowledge this child. Just then, a low sneer came from not far away. It's Isaac. He loosened the top button of his shirt and spoke with a lazy sarcasm. You want my child to call you Dad? Gee, are you worthy? For a moment, the atmosphere was tense. The moment Owen saw Isaac, he rushed over like crazy, as if something had touched his reverse scale. Isaac, it's you. Unfortunately, he was unable to fight with Isaac as he wished, and was stopped by the bodyguards in the villa. He probably forgot whose home this was. Owen's eyes turned red and he tried to break free from the bodyguards and have a big fight with Isaac. But the reality is very cruel. The bodyguard just threw him away and he fell to the ground in a mess. Isaac, on the other hand, just sat on the sofa with his legs crossed, looking at him expressionlessly, his face as cold as frost and snow. Do you want to get out of here on your own? Or do you want me to have you thrown out? I was a little surprised. Although Isaac is of noble status, his good manners have always been praised. Even when facing business rivals, he has never been seen to humiliate anyone in an unruly manner. This is the first time I've seen him so angry. And Owen came alone, and even though he was unwilling, it was useless. He looked dejected, and he staggered to his feet and handed me a box. I didn't open the blue velvet box, but I roughly guessed what was inside. It was the necklace that Mia had snatched away, and that I had been longing for a long time. He lowered his head and told me, "Olivia, on the day of the auction, I didn't really mean to take away something you liked. I just want you to be jealous and give in to me. That's all. I'm going to get the necklace back from you, and I'll ask Mia to abort the baby. Don't you like this necklace very much? Let's get back together, okay?" Yes, I used to love it so much. He knew it but still helped me and hit me in the face with it. He also knew that every time I cried with him, I felt extremely sad. But it still hurts me again and again. I said calmly, "I don't like it now. Whether it's the necklace or you. I don't like any of them." Owen turned pale. "Olivia, please stop being so stubborn, okay? Are you really willing to part with me? I just find it ridiculous." At the beginning, he was obviously the one who hurt others the most. Why is he acting like he is the victim now? I looked at his slightly red eyes, took the corner of my clothes out of his hand, and said seriously, "Owen, you ruined this. If you want to break up, do it thoroughly. Don't let me look down on you anymore." 11. 3 days later, Owen and I completed the final property transfer at the notary office. Owen looked extremely haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, and it was obvious that he had not slept well. But now, whether he is living a good or bad life has nothing to do with me. At the moment we parted ways, Owen seemed to have something to say to me. But before he could say anything, Mia suddenly appeared. The gentleness she usually pretended to have was no longer on her face, and instead, she was filled with anger and unwillingness. "Owen, she already has someone else's child. Why are you giving her so much? I thought you were just giving her a breakup fee. But why did you even transfer the 80 million villa to her? Have you ever thought about me and the baby in your belly?" I frowned slightly. Mia may not know yet, but what Owen gave me was more than just a simple breakup fee. I have a share in every business he has done and every money he has made. Without the me back then, how could he be where he is today? I just got the part that I deserved. Besides, Mia was too impatient. Owen's love is overwhelming but short-lived. Her gentle and loving wife persona collapsed too quickly, which was not a good thing. "Olivia, don't try to take advantage of me." Mia accused me madly and rushed up to me regardless of anything. "That's enough." Owen shouted angrily and stopped her. "Are you done yet? Stop embarrassing yourself here." Mia froze up after being yelled at, her eyes instantly reddened, and she threw the donkey brand bag in her hand at Owen. "Shame on you? How can you yell at me? You've already broken up with her. Do you still want to protect her?" More and more passers-by gathered around. Owen's expression became increasingly annoyed, and he finally exploded. "Even if I don't marry Olivia, I won't marry you." Mia was stunned by the yelling. The next second she realized something, and ran after him with a panicked expression, trying to hold Owen's hand. But Owen looked indifferent and pushed her aside forcefully. "Stay away from me." The accident happened at this moment. Mia loves dressing up, and she didn't shy away from it even after she got pregnant, still wearing exquisite sheepskin high heels as usual. She liked to use those to show Owen's love for her. As a result, Owen's swing caused her to miss the opportunity, and she rolled several times before falling down the stairs. She fell to the ground, her face pale as she clutched her stomach, begging for help in pain. "My baby. Owen, my stomach hurts so much." Owen panicked when he saw this, and his face looked very ugly. About 4 or 5 seconds later, bright red blood flowed between Mia's legs. My heart trembled when I saw it. Once upon a time, the child that Owen and I had was lost just like that. Is it God's will? A person who is promiscuous and unfaithful is destined to have shallow kinship. Or maybe the baby can sense in the mother's body that he is not loved by the father. So I left sadly. Even if the world is good, but it doesn't want to come again. 12. Because of Mia's fuss, the story between Isaac and I eventually reached the ears of the Dawson family. The next day, Isaac's grandfather ordered Isaac to return to the old house. He even specifically mentioned that he wanted to see me. When I was in the car, I couldn't help but feel nervous. Isaac comforted me and said his grandfather was very easy to talk to. I believe it. As a result, the old man's brows have never relaxed since he entered the door. Although the old man is 80 years old and needs to use crutches to walk, he has a dignified face and a natural aura of a superior. He narrowed his eyes and said in a tone that could not be refused, "Kneel down." The majestic voice echoed throughout the hall. Isaac said nothing, took off his suit jacket, and knelt upright. Even I, who was following behind, was shocked. Should I I have a lot of questions. As soon as the grandfather of the Dawson family saw me, his attitude changed 180 degrees in an instant, and he walked towards me with a kind and gentle smile. "Girl, don't be nervous, sit down quickly. Grandpa is not a bad person. Grandpa just wants to help you teach this stinky grandson who bullied you a lesson. Just sit on the sofa and watch." I was confused and was helped to sit down by the housekeeper of the Dawson family. The moment Isaac met my gaze, he slightly curled the corners of his mouth, indicating that I should not be offended. Seems that he is used to kneeling. I should be able to handle it. In the end, I overestimated him, because the next second he said, "Grandpa, Olivia is sitting down, so I shouldn't kneel anymore." It would have been better if he didn't say anything. As soon as he opened his mouth, the old man of the Dawson family exploded. The next second, he picked up his walking stick and hit him on the back without mercy. "You bastard! You still have the nerve to talk nonsense. Have you forgotten all the family rules? I introduced so many people to you before, but you refused to meet them. What was the result? He turned around and slept with a nice girl. What misfortune for our family." While cursing, the old man hit me even harder. I was shocked by this scene. What era is this? There are still people using family rules. Isaac is a man who can call the shots outside, but when he comes home, he has to kneel down and be beaten. I tried to plead. Grandpa Dawson, actually, this is not Isaac's fault. I was drunk that time and I was the first to. Before I could finish, the old man from the Dawson family interrupted me. "Don't beg him. You were drunk, but what about him? If he didn't have any bad intentions, would you be able to accomplish this? It's obvious that this little bastard is taking advantage of your misfortune. I won't teach him a lesson." When the old man from the Dawson family hits people, he means business. After being hit with the stick for more than 10 times, Isaac's white shirt was faintly seeping with blood. I quickly stopped the old man's walking stick. No more fighting. The old man of the Dawson family refused to give in and wanted to take the cane back. During the shove, Isaac, who had been kneeling obediently, suddenly stood up and protected me behind him. "Grandpa, you can hit me, but don't push Olivia. She's pregnant." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man from the Dawson family suddenly stopped his hand in midair. After being stunned for a few seconds, his eyes suddenly sparkled. "Child? You mean I'm going to have a little great-grandchild?" Isaac was stunned. "You called me back to get beaten, but you still don't know she's pregnant?" Grandpa Dawson shook his head in confusion. It turned out that he had only heard a rough outline of the story, and didn't know that I was already pregnant with Isaac's child. I came to the Dawson family this time fully prepared to discuss the custody of the child. Unexpectedly, after hearing what happened, the old man asked me directly when Isaac and I would have our wedding. Sir, are you changing too fast?" I had to explain. "I'm sorry, Grandpa Dawson. I have no plans to get married for now." When the old man from the Dawson family heard this, he was silent for a moment, then glared at Isaac with a look of disappointment. "What are you doing for a living, you little bastard? How come you haven't even caught up with your wife yet?" When he said this, he didn't avoid me at all. I turned my head away in embarrassment. But I heard Isaac's smiling voice. "Well, I'm too stupid. I'm already chasing. I will work harder." That night, the old man of the Dawson family arranged for us to stay in the old house. He even deliberately said that there wasn't enough sleep in the room, so he put Isaac and I in one bedroom. The old man's thoughts are written all over his face. The bedroom is decorated in a simple black and white style, and it is obviously Isaac's exclusive room. Isaac took off his blood-stained shirt and asked me to help him apply medicine. His skin was so pale that the bruises and wounds stood out. I took the ointment and rubbed it on him carefully, my fingertips touching the skin on his back. Body temperature a little hot. Isaac suddenly spoke in a hoarse voice. Grandpa is always looking forward to my marriage, so please don't be offended by his overenthusiasm. I said softly to show my understanding. As old people, they always hope to have many children and grandchildren. After applying the medicine, I breathed a sigh of relief. He glanced around the room casually. Suddenly, a pair of cufflinks on the cabinet caught my attention. Why does it look so familiar? I walked over and took it in my hand, feeling extremely shocked. Isaac, how did you get these cufflinks? Isaac's eyes swept across the pair of cufflinks, then fixed on my face. He was silent for a few seconds before he lowered his eyelashes slightly. You gave it to me. I looked at him in disbelief. How could that be? I sold these cufflinks 8 years ago. Isaac pinched the cufflinks, took a deep breath, and seemed to have made sufficient mental preparation before he began to explain. 8 years ago, a girl who was setting up a stall in front of the university sold me this pair of cufflinks. This cufflink has 6 blue and white diamonds in total, and the details are exquisite, just as good as those of luxury brands, but she only sold it to me for 800 yuan. She said it was designed by herself. It's not a big brand, and it's not worth the money. She sold it to raise money to buy her boyfriend a new phone. Halfway through his speech, Isaac raised his eyes and smiled self-deprecatingly. At the time I thought she was pretty but a little silly. During that time I often passed by that street and could always see her selling things at the stall. If she didn't have a boyfriend, I would definitely go after her. Later, she graduated and I went abroad. I thought we would never meet again. But who would have thought that a few years later, her works would appear in jewelry auctions around the world. Later, she came to me with her own jewelry brand. I watched her walk towards me step by step, and the feeling of excitement in my heart was rekindled. Over the past few years, my upbringing has been reminding me that she has someone in her heart, and I must not disturb her. Until that night, she suddenly stumbled and fell into my arms. Night is falling. Inside the room, the light was slightly yellowish. The night breeze blew through the window screens of the old house, bringing a gentle coolness. Isaac's tone became softer and softer. That night, you took the initiative to kiss me. Olivia, tell me, how could I let go again? I listened to all this in a daze, and Isaac had already held my face and kissed me hard. 14. Later, I gave birth to a cute and lovely daughter. Isaac has always been by my side, but I have been reluctant to accept his proposal. There's no particular reason. It's just because I don't want to be trapped in a relationship anymore. Only when you have been in prison can you know the value of freedom. What's more, love and marriage are never the same thing. I don't dare to join in easily again. My daughter took my last name and was named Sophia. I accompanied Sophia Warner from the time she learned to speak to the time she entered school. Before I knew it, another 7 years had passed. When people talk about Isaac, they say he has gone from a young and handsome gay boss to the current golden bachelor. Isaac always clarified again and again. I'm not gay, nor am I single. I have a girlfriend. I have a daughter too. My daughter is so beautiful. The old man of the Dawson family is in good health, but he still often scolds him. Yes, you have a girlfriend and a daughter, but you don't have a wife. Your daughter even calls you uncle. Isaac. Of course, Sophia knew from a young age that Isaac was her father. It's just that she's too clingy to me. Every time Isaac comes over, he insists on sleeping with me. He is more clingy than a child. Sophia could only be coaxed away by her grandmother. So Sophia deliberately called him Uncle Dawson. Uncle Dawson was wronged by his daughter, so he came to me pitifully at night. He hugged me and kissed me again and again. His tone was full of resentment. Olivia, you are heartless. When will you give me a name? He pinched my waist and poked his abdominal muscles lazily. It depends on your performance tonight. It also depends on my mood tomorrow. Isaac muttered that I was just writing him a bad check. The next second, he buried his head and kissed her even more fiercely and vigorously. 15. Later, I heard from a friend that Owen had died. After Mia had a miscarriage, she kept pestering Owen and refused to let go. She threatened Owen to marry her and take care of her for the rest of her life. Owen had long been fed up with her and naturally refused to compromise, and even wanted to fire her from the company. Mia was desperate and took advantage of her position to leak company secrets to her rivals. She also secretly uncovered many of the company's accounting problems. Owen was so overwhelmed by her that he first lost several big business orders. Later, he could not hold on, his capital chain broke and the company went bankrupt. He hated Mia so much that they had a heated argument, and in anger he accidentally pushed her down the stairs. Perhaps I really feel that the future is bleak, and I am disheartened. Owen jumped in himself. I just casually echoed after hearing this. I see. There was no more ripples in my heart. After so many years, hearing the name Owen again seems like it happened in my previous life. Friends are still sighing. You said you two were so good friends when you were in school. I still remember that Owen brought you meals every day, gave you extra lessons, and couldn't live without you for a single day. At that time, the entire girls' dormitory knew how much he loved you. How could such a good person just die quietly afterwards? I listened quietly, as if I was listening to a stranger. Mom, come and play. Not far away, the heroine waved at me. Isaac was playing frisbee with his daughter and dog. I hung up the phone in a hurry, took the frisbee from my daughter's hand, and threw it far away. The dog is running freely and my daughter is laughing happily. Isaac looked over at me. That glance. The features are gentle. The years are quiet and good. End of text. Owen's perspective. After they broke up, Owen secretly visited Olivia 3 times. The first time was in the hospital. At that time, he was very troubled by Mia's harassment. Coupled with long-term smoking and drinking, his health was completely ruined. He had a stomach attack and landed himself in the hospital. When the pain became unbearable, Owen would always think of Olivia unconsciously. In the past, when he was drinking, even if he frowned a little, Olivia would worry that he was not feeling well. If he vomited, Olivia would be even more distressed. He always thought that Olivia, who loved him so much, would never leave him in this life. But now, he was suffering from gastric bleeding and was in excruciating pain. But even hearing her voice had become a luxury for him. Olivia had deleted his WeChat a long time ago. Fortunately, the chat history is still there. He listened to the voice messages she had sent him in the past almost morbidly. Husband, come pick me up after get off work, kiss. By the way, can you take some time this year to go to Iceland with me to see the Northern Lights? Owen, happy birthday, Mr. Pearson. You are not allowed to work overtime tonight. And you are not allowed to complain that the cake I made is ugly. Her breath seemed to be still close to my ears. Playful, sweet, angry. He deliberately ignored the subsequent quarrels and her crying and questioning him whether he still loved her or not. He only realized it after he lost it. It turns out that he wasn't tired of Olivia. But Olivia had already been integrated into his bones and blood, just like oxygen. He seemed unaware of it, but in fact he could not escape it. Later, by chance, he saw Olivia in the obstetrics and gynecology department of the same hospital. Olivia is here for a prenatal checkup. Isaac accompanied her throughout the whole process. A big man in a suit and tie. He served a pregnant woman while running around himself. At that moment, Owen used all his strength to resist the urge to run to her and confess and beg. In order not to disturb her anymore, he fled away in a panic. The second time I met Olivia was 3 years later. At that time, his company was in trouble and he was running around looking for funds. Passing by the big screen in Times Square, he saw her jewelry advertisement. She is a designer with both business and artistic acumen. In the past few years, his career has stagnated, and she has already left him behind. Owen saw Olivia herself standing under the big advertising screen, wearing a bright red dress. It seemed like she was participating in some commercial activity, and she was taking photos with the reporters one by one. She is so pretty. But he was in such a state of disgrace that he seemed unable to catch up with her. Owen's eyes turned red in silence. The third time I saw Olivia was at the amusement park. The sun was shining brightly that day. Isaac held his daughter's hand with one hand and held a parasol for Olivia with the other. The three of them were wearing cute parent-child outfits. The little girl laughed and first called Isaac Uncle Dawson. As she was calling him, somehow, she suddenly changed her tone and called him Dad. Isaac seemed stunned and repeatedly confirmed with the girl. Sophia, what did you call me? Can you call me more? Come on. The little girl was a little shy, but with Olivia's encouragement, she finally hugged Isaac happily. I call you Daddy. Dad, Dad, Dad. Why, you don't want to be my dad anymore, but still want to be my Uncle Dawson? Isaac didn't know why, but he seemed to be so happy that he almost cried. Owen, on the other hand, stood far away in an inconspicuous corner, watching this scene with jealousy. By then, his company had already gone bankrupt. Mia was like a cancer, torturing him to the point where he was living a life worse than death. He was so jealous that Isaac could get Olivia. He regretted even more. If I hadn't been unable to resist the temptation back then, I would be the one holding Olivia's hand now. They will have children and wear parent-child clothing. How nice it would be if there was a time machine in the world. Then he could travel back to the time before he hurt Olivia. She was still his Olivia. Unfortunately, all this became a delusion. Mia was pestering him again. This time during the argument, Mia threw his old cell phone from more than 10 floors down. The phone broke into pieces. Owen is completely crazy. That phone contained the voice message Olivia had sent him before. For so many years, he has been reluctant to clear it. Every sleepless night, he would rely on those sounds to quench his thirst. But Mia ruined it. At that moment, his sanity was completely devoured. He pushed Mia down. Go to hell, he said to Mia. Say it to yourself too. His body flew into the air, and at the moment of falling, the whistling wind passed by his ears. Olivia, if I am gone, will you think of me occasionally? Forget it. Let's just forget it.